Blake, what type of microphone are you speaking into right now?
Toby, everybody is sure that I have no idea what mic this actually is.
Welcome to the ChurchGear podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a guy who loves dad jokes so much that I might just have a kid so I'm allowed to join the club. And I'm here with my boss and the chief of the dad club, Toby Walters.
I just love this because I literally one night spent the entire evening coming up with dad puns, and my kids were amazed. It was awesome.
Did you write them down?
No, but they just came naturally. You know how just like garbage just flows from my mouth at any given moment?
And we pluck the gold out of it.
Yeah. And you know there's a lot of dad jokes around microphones?
I did not know that actually.
There really are. So, I mean, I tried to fix my friend's mic one time, and I'm not sure if it is working. He hasn't given me any feedback yet.
Okay.
Yep.
You should write these down. I literally this week bought a book of dad jokes for this guy that's in my small group who just became a dad. So, you should write them down.
You know, Blake, with my build, they'd be more dad jokes.
Okay. All right. So tell me some more about some other microphones that don't involve dad jokes.
I don't know if these microphones were involved in dad jokes before, but when I first got into sound at 13, the first thing you start with is a microphone. Like, what is a microphone? What does it do? And so I just had this, I have this passion for gear, obviously. I started ChurchGear because of it.
I thought your passion was for the church, not the gear.
Well, I love both equally. No, I love the church more. Wait.
All right, there we go. I got him already.
So it's just the microphone there's just something about it for me where it was like inspirational, almost this, kindred connection I had with mics. And so I remember being 13 and there was a band in the youth group, in the high school group. And of course, when you're 13 and the high school band says, hey, we heard you're kind of like getting into the sound thing. Could you record us one night? So we could do a little demo. And so this was my very first moment to figure out how to mic a band. And so I did all sorts of wrong things, but oftentimes the best solutions are discovered by trying things wrong because you don't know any better.
Oh, you got to be pushed into a corner before you figure out there's a trap door underneath you.
Which I'm still waiting for you to come up with good solutions because you keep doing things wrong.
I'm just trying to compile a large list of crap so we can pull the nuggets out.
But one thing I did is I ran out of microphones, so I started using the vocalist wireless mics and put them on the drums. And
no, even I know that's probably not a good idea.
So in the middle of songs, you would just hear these and we had these really weird squeals back then. This was in the 90s. And so if, there was frequency interference on RF, do you know the phrase RF?
Range frequency?
Well, you're close enough. So there would be just these little static squeals. And so the band kind of joked of yeah, well, it kind of went with the grunge theme we were going for anyways. But as I grew, I learned more about, we're going to talk about this a little later, Blake, but microphones can be unbelievably expensive. And so I got to borrow ones from friends. I borrowed, it's called a U87 one time. And my friend said, I'm going to let you borrow this, but you can't leave this sitting on your front seat when you go into 7-Eleven. Is the one piece of advice he gave me.
His other piece of advice should have been, and you can't put this on Reverb and eBay because how irresponsible for them to give you a good mic. I'm sure you wanted to sell it.
And I was actually working for a small sound installation company. And one day the owner of the company just starts going around to all the employees and said, I can't find my pair of Shure KSM 44s. Has anybody seen them?
The other guy's yeah, I saw it when I shipped it the other day after Toby sold it.
Well, it's not funny, but one of the guys had stolen them, and we didn't find out till a couple months later when he got arrested for stealing computers from one of the schools we were installing gear at. And then he just confessed to stealing a bunch of the owner's stuff. So,
I guess that's a real tech takeaway right there.
Yeah. And then my pinnacle moment of microphonedom. I'm coining phrases.
Your drop the mic moment.
That's right. So I was in a band when I first moved to Nashville in a band, and the guitarist is he kind of comes from a lineage of a very famous musical family, and his uncle had kind of gifted him, but kind of said like, hey, you can have this microphone in your studio as long as you want. So when we recorded like a project, I got to use this mic. And this is not the same model, but the literal microphone that Michael Jackson, Frank Sinatra, like major, like the most famous musicians ever had singing into this exact microphone because his uncle had produced these artists.
From Frank Sinatra, Michael Jackson to Toby Walter's lips, that finally arrived to the real artist.
Yeah, and I feel it's fair to put me on the same level as those two.
Heck yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's why I did it.
I know. I appreciate that about you. Yeah.
Listen, I try to convince your dad every time he's in town that you should be his favorite child, and he never will say yes, but I'm going to keep trying.
It's because my brother and sister both have doctorates. Selfish jerks.
Do they have ChurchGear? I don't think so.
No.
So get out of here with
Exactly.
those doctorate. I can burn a doctorate degree in like 5 seconds with some gasoline. You can't burn ChurchGear in 5 seconds. It'll probably take at least a couple hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, speaking of someone I would never burn alive or set on fire, now introducing the founder of MicRentals, Stephen Arruda. Stephen, welcome to the show, man.
All right, I appreciate that. And how's it going, guys?
He's never said to another guest that he would not burn them alive. So you're a first.
That's true. And when I make a threat, it's pretty real. So that's I'm just kidding.
I feel special. I feel very special.
All right. Well, Stephen, do you think that specialness can carry through here and you can beat us in the 5 truths and a lie? How confident do you feel in your lie?
This was actually kind of tough. I'm not good at lying.
Oh, he's
That's
such a
kind
good
of who I
boy.
am. So
We asked your wife, and
yeah,
she was like, so.
And then we asked your ex-wife, and she was like, oh, I'm just kidding. I don't know if Stephen has an ex-wife. Okay.
I do not. Husband of 1, father of 6.
That's
how I roll.
That's why I said that joke, because you have so many kids. I was like, there's no way he had time for another wife. He's got so many children.
Nice.
All right.
I don't have time for another one.
Depending on how this podcast goes, he might at the end of this.
Yeah.
We're getting him into hot water right now.
But hot water, not hot flames. Okay,
That's right.
Here we go. Number 1, I was a turntable list and owned 3,000 records.
That was hard for you to say.
Now Toby's going to set me on fire for messing that one up. Number 2, I was a ska band. SK band. I was in a SKA band.
Oh my
In a
god!
ska band.
How old are you?
I'm
Wait,
29.
how old are you? Dear God.
That was a real reaction.
No, hold on, Blake. And Stephen, we're not making this stuff up. Like, Blake is this dumb.
What's an SKA band?
Ska.
A ska band?
You don't know what a ska band is?
I know what a bra band is.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
All right. Now, if this one is true, I'm going to pee my pants. Number 3, I went to school with Ryan Tedder of One Republic. That's my favorite band, Stephen.
Really?
Yes, of all time.
Well, I hope it's true for your sake.
Please be true. It only just barely beat Toby's band for my second favorite band of all time. Number 4, my main instrument is the flute.
He would be the
Could be.
manliest flautist that I've ever seen.
Number 5, I did an internship with Timberland, the producer. Suck it, Toby. I got that one right. I said that right, didn't I?
Yeah, but you still don't know who it is.
Well, no, I know.
Yeah,
he's-
somebody spell checked that one too, and it was like
Me.
Timberland. It's Timbaland.
I was trying to rehearse last night, and I was like, because I know Toby gets mad when I mess these up, so I was trying to make sure I pronounced it.
I don't get mad. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, I interned with the boot manufacturer.
Yeah,
Oh goodness,
very different things.
I'm gonna get the boot after this episode.
But I bet Timbaland wears Timberlands. Sometimes, at least.
Number 6, and finally, I was a business partner of a former Disney executive. That one is so specific. I'm gonna say that's true.
I mean, how many Disney executives have there been?
Well,
Like thousands?
exactly.
Well, I guess if you count all the VPs, there's a VP over everything.
Yeah.
Whatever VP finance, operations, all that crap. Anyway,
You know what? I
just rolling the dice on that one.
really don't have a good guess on this, so I'm gonna just go with the first one. I was a turntablist and owned 3,000 records.
Okay, I'm going to go with the flute one. Do you know that 2 of the wives of ChurchGear crew members are flautists?
Well, that's how we hire, pretty much. It's the first question.
Yeah, and they're both like petite,
Be careful
like
now.
feminine women, Whereas Stephen, I mean, look at the guy. He's the manliest man of the three of us, at least.
You're saying a flute can't be manly though? A flute could be a
Occasionally.
blunt force weapon.
Occasionally.
You could take someone out with it.
Yeah, when Ron Burgundy played it in Anchorman, it was pretty manly.
Yeah, he took it to the fight.
He did. Okay.
All right, we're locked in, Stephen. What's the lie?
All right. So, do you mind if I go down through these one at a time, just to
Sure.
to blow your minds? Okay. So I was I am a turntablist, so I can cut and scratch. I own 3,000 records.
Uh-oh, Blake.
Dang it.
My DJ name is and was DJ Raven. It was on my family coat of arms, so I chose that based upon Kings 17:4. I've ordered the ravens to feed you, and I became it out of necessity because I was with a only white dude in a hip hop group, outreach group at ORU, and they didn't have a DJ. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. People are like playing like their tapes and stuff, and they're getting jammed, and I was like, I need to learn how to do this. So I learned how to do it on a like a hi-fi turntable system, and then I bought my own and collected records, and yeah, I've DJ'd all over the place, and so that's I want to build a room in my house where I can get all that stuff back out again. So during 2020, I did silent discos for my kids. I gave them all PSM 900 packs and let them run around with headphones. Yeah, it was great. It was so good.
And Stephen, for Christmas
yes,
this year, my 10-year-old son, he wants to be a DJ as well. So I got him a MPC Live, and it was from the
nice.
stage setup of Miss Taylor Swift.
Are we legally allowed to? Okay.
Well,
That's
it was
cool.
I mean, it was used on tour in their stage production. So
Allegedly.
Yeah.
I'm going to say allegedly for legal sake.
100% true.
Allegedly.
I still have I have Technic 1200s, and they're black. They're not the 1210s because these are actually from Japan. There's a guy in Tulsa that's like this hi-fi. He could fix pretty much everything. He's kind of a weirdo, right? But he had these two black 1200s, which again, if they're made in the US, they're called a 1210. So mine are very, very rare. So I had cases made for them and everything. Still got them. They're incredible. They even survived flipping over. It was too close to a projector screen that was going up, and it flipped this table, and they survived landing flat on their face.
Did Jesus flip that table?
And
Were they brokering yet?
No, it was at Lookout Mountain, Covenant College on Lookout Mountain, Georgia. Georgia, just outside Chattanooga. Yeah, funny enough.
All right, so were you in a ska band?
Yes, it was called the Ivy League. Yes. And we played all over the place. We opened up, did like a mini tour with like POD, opened up for Third Day, and we got really good. Played Cornerstone. I don't know if I should brag about that.
It used to be cool. Come on.
I'm still scrubbing off from taking a bath in the cow pond. It was so bad. Yeah. And yes, Ryan Tedder was in my freshman class. His uncle was actually my pastor back in Providence, Rhode Island. So
you've talked to Ryan Tedder?
Oh yeah, I haven't talked to him in about 15 years, but yes,
you've hung
it's
out.
like right when One Republic was taken off on YouTube. Yeah, my freshman class was loaded, man. Or like those 2 years. Michael Gungor was there too. I played with him. So good segue. I played the flute with Michael Gungor.
What is his main instrument?
So it is my main instrument.
Toby.
It's what I started with. And I played with the crappiest, even broken flute for a long time. So I developed a different style. The neck was broken, so when I hold it, it's lower. And then some lady came up to me after church one day and gave me a sterling silver Gemeinhardt open hold flute. Like, dude, I think it's like worth $2,500 now, but there was no way I would have been able to buy that. But yeah,
man, you guys and your rare gear just coming to you.
I know.
Yeah,
we have a special thing about us.
I did not intern with Timberland. Ryan Tedder did. I didn't.
I mean, that makes sense.
Shoot. You know what? He had us in that mind space because he's worked with Ryan Tedder so much, Timberland. And so dang it, you got me. Good job.
Did you do an internship with Timberland boots? That'd be a fun switcheroo.
Even though I do have a pair. I actually do have a pair of steel-toed Timberland boots. But I was for a short period of time, a couple of years, I was a business partner with Lee Cockrell, believe it or not, in a joint venture. If you don't know him, you need to read um, Customer Rules. That's where like our customer service is based on Customer Rules. It's a really good book, Time Management Magic, and it's got a few other good ones, but very insightful leader, really good guy. But there you go. Sorry, gotcha.
Usually I get it right. Like every once in a blue moon, you pronounce things right, but you still get it wrong.
You know what? I'm keeping track. I was trying to decide if I was going to tell Toby this ahead of time. I'm keeping track of it now.
Are you now?
So
Okay.
at the end of the year, we'll find out who won the most, you, me, or the guest.
Ooh,
And it's
keeping score now.
It's
Fun.
hard for us to beat the guests because they got so many more opportunities. Stephen, I appreciate how much thought you put into that. You really got us. Speaking of some of the things
no worries.
you've put a lot of thought into, your background as you lay awake at night and think about how you got into tech. What are the thoughts that come to mind? What's your background in tech?
It's funny when when I saw that question, I was just like, holy cow. It's almost like I stumbled upon it. So back to the DJing thing, I thought it was a good idea to hook up the amplified output of my stereo into my preamp mixer.
That sounds like a fine idea to me.
Nope.
It was not happy. I blew up my stereo, and then I was like, why and how did that happen? You know, I can't afford to just go out and buy another stereo. So that's where I think that's when like I wanted to really start understanding a little bit more about what I was doing, what my equipment did. So I signed up for a couple of recording classes at TCC, had an amazing teacher, retired now. His name was Lonnie Liggett. And that's where the interest peaked. And then I was invited to DJ as a guest at 180 at Church on the Move, and never stepped foot up there ever before. I walked up there, and the sound guy wasn't there, so I basically patched my stuff in without asking, and that was risky. But he walked over and he was like, "How did you know to do that?" And I told him, and he was like, "Would you be interested in a job here?" I was like, "Huh?" And I didn't know it was Willie George, Gospel Bill, my childhood hero. I had no idea. And I quit my job and served for free for 2 weeks, just hoping I got a job, and they hired me. Yeah. And so a year and a half later, I was a supervisor.
That's amazing.
Whoopee.
That's like what I did to work at ChurchGear. I quit my job. I've been still volunteering for 2.5 years trying to get the official job, but that's crazy that worked.
I'm still working on your offer letter, by the way.
Hey, you know what? And that's enough to keep me going. So how old were you when in that story?
So that was 21 when I first started at Willie George Ministries in TV and film. So I was the post-production supervisor eventually, but I had to do location sound. I had to edit all this. I had to edit the sermons to the weekend radio stuff. And that was like, and we were doing it on Audio Vision. I don't know if you know what that is. Audio Vision was Avid's version of Pro Tools before they bought Pro Tools from DigiDesign.
Wow.
And for all the homies that know, back in 2000, Pro Tools Free was like the best thing that they could have ever done for that software, because it got everybody hooked to it, you know. And then when they had to pay for it, everybody just paid for it.
Oh,
so I had like an 8-track version of it.
You're telling me. I was literally texting someone in the company to transfer the Pro Tools subscription or whatever we've done, the license to our current editor right before we recorded this. Like, that's the last thing I did before we hit record. So they've definitely got us all hooked on Pro Tools.
I didn't realize I changed laptops since the last time I used it, and I didn't even have it on here. And I was like, oh, snap. Download an Avid link. And I was like, what is all this crap? It's like, it used to be so much easier, you know? So anyway, that's kind of how I really got started, and it ended up going into ended up moving to Atlanta to help start a church, that some of that didn't end up working out. So I got a job, 2 jobs, one at Best Buy in the home theater, specifically audio, and I crushed their audio sales because no one knew how to sell it. But then on the weekends, I was doing just load in and load outs, and then they saw I worked my butt off, and they made me a stage manager. Once in a while, I did lights, and it was pretty cool. It was all like, you know, the the classic rock stuff, Three Dog Night and the Doobie Brothers and people like that would come through, and it was, great experience. So that's kind of how it just kind of evolved.
And then after Atlanta, did you head back to Tulsa?
I did. My wife and I were dating long distance for about a year, and so I was like, well, it's probably a good idea for, this is pretty serious, and I wanted to marry her, so it was like, be a little bit easier if I'm in Oklahoma. So I used Best Buy to transfer back to Oklahoma, and about a year after we got married, and we got married in 2006, so 2007. Dry Gulch USA, which was owned by Church on the Move, called me, and they needed a tech director. And man, I was hesitant to say yes. And then at the time, Andrew Stone was the production manager, and he's really the reason why I want, even though it was 50 miles away or 50 minutes away, excuse me, I wanted to be around him. I wanted to take that weight off of him. From the weekends I was volunteering at Church on the Move, I just really loved how he's treating people. And I was like, man, I want to do what you do here out there. And it took a little while, but we had a massive project, which was called the Christmas Train. So I had to figure out, it's just simple. I had to figure out how to put sound on moving train cars and make sure all the audio was triggered by tags as they went around the track for individual train cars. So there's no manual for that, by the way. I tried to find one. So I had to combine my installer experience from doing home and other commercial work and kind of put it into this train. And I mean, I had to handle like the air exchange in the cars, to the low voltage lighting, to again the multi-zone audio in each of these cars, because as they're passing scenes, it's not delayed. They're getting the audio for where their car is positioned. So the last car is not hearing what the front car is hearing. It was a process, and I didn't just do it by myself. I had to figure it out, and then I had they sent in the reinforcements to help me knock a lot of it out.
So it seems like you've done a lot of things where you don't know how to do it, but you figure it out. And so from Best Buy, blowing up their sales, and then going to Church on the Move, and then it sounds like you're a train engineer in this scenario as well. And
dude, when they asked me to, they're like, hey, we need to put a screen in the engine so the engineers can gauge their speed, because narrow gauge steam engines don't just stop. And they don't just speed. It's very difficult. And so we gamified it for them. We kind of made it where they scored points at the end of each run, and they were aimed, if their screen was all white as far as their times go, I would buy them cinnamon rolls at the end of the night. So, yeah. It just, knowing how to motivate people and love on people, reward people. That's what being out at Dry Gulch taught me big time. How to lead people, because I didn't really know how to do that until I started getting summer staff out there. Because I was also over the theater and just pretty much every aspect of AV stuff out there. So it was a wonderful experience, and it prepared me for what I'm doing right now.
You know, a lot of people say they're a jack of all trades, master of none. I'd like to say that Stephen Arruda is a jack of all trades, master of all. I mean,
we got to see the end result. So, Stephen, you were telling me
the Christmas Train moved to Tennessee. If you didn't know that, I got to find out where it is, because they took the whole thing, train tracks, trains, and everything, billboards, vinyls, and it's in Tennessee now. I don't know if they launched it this year. They kept bugging me, and I was like, I don't have time. I did my share of time of rolling underneath those train cars. I was like, I got to find out where that is and let you know.
So when you and I were talking at MXU and Amplio events that we're hanging out at this year, you were kind of telling me some of your background where you almost accidentally started ChurchGear before me and all this gear. And then you told me that Church on the Move was rotating out some seating.
Yes, because when I got there in 2007, the role that I was there was defined by the previous person, which didn't really say much. Meaning, they were active when groups were there, but they were not proactive when groups were not there. Meaning, hey, there's all this maintenance you need to do. There's closets full of crap that is just building up. So when I got there, I was like, this stuff's got to go. But I'm not like a mega environmentalist or anything, but I was like, I can't just throw this in a dumpster. And I've always heard like another man's trash is another man's treasure. And so I started
Toby is
with
that other man.
cleaning out. I started cleaning out the closet and then I was like, okay, well, let me try this like internationally too. So I understood logistics and shipping. I wasn't afraid to call people and talk to people. And so that got me, I was always already experienced with like face-to-face contact, being in people's homes during residential installations. But this was like people I don't see, people I've never met, dealing with problems and how I respond to those problems. And I think a lot of those values that I established just with the little eBay stuff that we were doing have carried into what we do now. But then Andrew shows up with like a van, him and Jesse Burr show up in a van just full of like Presonus 8-channel comps and Midas pre's, all kinds of crap. And oh, that's right, components from speakers. I told him, hey, if you're gonna drop the PA from the ceiling, take the components out. Dudes will buy these and build their own crap. And there were like some rare like Jensen ribbons that you can't find anywhere. Guys were gobbling this stuff up. So I would send Andrew a report of what was selling, and we would just laugh because to us it was trash. But it was awesome. It was like, man, and as you guys know, it adds up. So then they were like, oh, well, Stephen knows eBay, and we've got to renovate the main auditorium. So we ripped out all these chairs with no plan whatsoever on what to do with them. So let Stephen figure it out. 13 trailers.
Oh, my
full of
gosh.
23 or 2,400 seats. 3 different grades of concrete. Because the floor, 4 to 5 different sizes. So you had to, and none of it was together. None of it.
It sounds
matched.
like they bought this set of chairs on eBay themselves. Like they cobbled these together as well.
It was because the angles of the seating change, and so you have like a smaller seat, bigger back, and then you have the different angles, including the levels, not to mention the end caps versus the ones that go in between. So I. Somehow influenced one of the facilities team to help me organize all of those trailers. Like we emptied them all out into our warehouse and it was snowing one day, so it was perfect, and organized all of it. So we knew where all the where correct angles were, all the end caps were, and our counts. Then I was doing like when I listed them to sell them, I had to handle the freight. I befriended a guy who owned a freight company out in Conway, Arkansas, to ship the stuff all over the country. So anyway, it turned into, it was really a blessing in disguise, because once I got rid of all of those things, it was saving the church money, because now we got money back for the chairs, but now those storage trailers are gone. So
yes.
That's like $200, $250 each per month. So it's just like gone. And so that was great. And fast forward to 2016, after I've, had good experience with it for about 4 years, I wasn't working at the ministry. I started MicRentals. I was there to tech direct the last Christmas train, and they were clearing out the town hall, my old auditorium, of the seating in there, which was the same seating that came from our old auditorium. They were going to throw it in a dumpster. And I was like, hey, wait. Are you going to throw it in the dumpster? And they're like, yeah. So I was like, can I buy all these for like $4,000? There's 400 seats. And I was like, and they were like, 100%. That's more than the dumpster was going to give us. And so I turned around. I said, leave them here. I'll pull them out. I'll palletize. I'll ship everything. And I just sold them for like $22 a piece on eBay. It was a good Christmas. Let's just say that. But I also blessed some other people at Dry Gulch at that time to like, hey, when Christmas train's not going on, if you want to pull out rows 1 through 10 and palletize them, I'll pay you $500.
Well,
And
I mean, Stephen had to sell all this stuff to finance it's 13 kids, right? The 13 kids amount of Christmas. So, I mean, that's a lot of Christmas.
That's funny how that grows every time it gets brought up, but 6.
16
I should have started
kids,
with 1, so by the time we
kids.
end up at the end of the podcast, we get to the right number. Yeah.
So Stephen,
but
I'm
anyway,
just
that was it.
I'm imagining you, flipping these chairs and thinking like, hey, this is a great way to make money and like not let things go to waste. But is there something else that I can sell that doesn't require 13 trailers and freight shipping? And you just landed on microphones. That's what I imagine in my mind. So give us the scoop on MicRentals.com. How did that come to you?
That was very labor intensive. And so that was like, I was like, man, I wouldn't be passionate about doing this. But yeah, so MicRentals, if we fast forward to 2014, at that time, I went to, I was asked to produce some videos to help recruit staff for the following year. And so the summer of 2014, and I was like, okay, I want to do them really good. So, we had decent camera bodies. And so I went to lensrentals.com to rent some nicer lenses. And I was like, well, I got to capture audio. So I was like, well, Lens Rentals has mics. So obviously rented from them. But then I was like, is there a MicRentals.com? I was like, well, let me just look real quick. And you think, in the year 2000, there would be a MicRentals.com, So it wasn't. It was parked by a domain company. And I was like, and I just sat there and I was like, interesting. So I just jotted it down in a journal somewhere. And I was like, well, I wouldn't know what to do with it. But if I did it, it would be kind of like what Lens Rentals does, where it's very easy process. I've always loved using them. So I just kind of tabled it. And I went on vacation and came back, and I decided to actually step away from Dry Gulch, thinking I was going to partner in a home theater business in the next town over. I thought that's what I should be doing or what wanted to do. So it was one of those, it was the wrong thing at the right time. You don't hear that one too often. Because those next 6 months, I learned everything of what not to do in a business, how not to treat people, how not to treat customers. Good grief, how not to treat, especially somebody who wants to invest and be a partner. My God. And obviously, I didn't know that at the time. I was very frustrated. But come Easter of 2015, or excuse me, January 2015, my wife had Charlie and Cece, our twins. So at that time we had 4 and 4, and I went to an office nearby that I had access to, and they had a smart board, smart board that I could just write down ideas. And the MicRentals idea just kind of hit me while I was editing some stuff, and I was like, man, okay. This is the second time I've looked and it's available, 6 months later still. If I had it, what the heck would I do with it? And so I just started writing idea after idea, how I want my culture to be, what kind of partners do I want, what kind of employees do I want, what gear do I want up on there, what do I don't want up there, and all that stuff, what I want to be kind of known for too. And I need to find those again. They're buried on my iCloud somewhere, but I started with that, and it just so happens in 2014 that's when I met Lee Cockrell, and I was kind of getting a lot of entrepreneurial training, especially through books, reading a lot of books and just digesting them. And I also met my current partners through him as well, because they always use like a lot of wisdom. They, in the business we were in, they were trying to help the founder of that, trying to avoid pitfalls. However, he didn't listen to them. And I was like, man, these guys are really wise. And so part of my founding partners was finding the people that were going to fit the culture that I wanted and not change it and contort it. I also needed the blessing of what I would call a champion, because when I heard this message the last day of working at the home theater company from Joe Mullins, preached like get behind a champion in this message on a Wednesday night, and I'm sitting in church and I look over and there's Andrew Stone, and I was like, that's my guy. So I made an appointment, met with him. I was like, hey, I got this idea. I told him the whole spiel, and in typical Andrew fashion, he's like, dude, that doesn't suck. I was like, good, because I just made you a founding partner. And I wanted to start with, because I wanted MicRentals to be a blessing to the guys that no one notices until there's a problem.
Yeah.
Guys backstage, front of house. I see in this industry, everybody's so focused on like the artist, the performer, and I was like, they're not anything without this team. Really, they're not. He's one button away from making that person go away. So, but Andrew, I was like, man, I want to start it with somebody who's been my mentor and my friend, and I think right around the same time he was pondering the idea of MXU with Lee and Jeff. So it was really cool how that was kind of coming together at the same time. So when I got that thumbs up from him, that was like the biggest boost to my confidence. So I cleaned out my my ministry retirement account, which was probably about $20,000, and got my partners together and just came up with a plan what to start with. I think the hardest thing was just picking like what gear to start with when you don't have a lot of money. Not easy. But again, I just starting with like the heart behind it to reach and be a resource to specifically church production first and foremost, and have that community steer our selection. We wanted to make a quick and easy process for them. Like if you're from a church, you do not get bogged down and like, hey, send us a certificate of insurance. We'll send you this paperwork. Because everywhere I saw, everything was get a quote. Now, granted, there are more complicated setups where we have to do a quote because like wireless systems, that can get complicated, so we want to be sure that's all spelled out. But there's not too many sites that I could find, but like Lens Rentals from the MicRentals perspective, where you can just click, put in a cart, pick your dates, and you're out of there, right? So
totally.
Yeah. And so now, here we are 8 years later in April.
All right. So 2 questions for you. First one, are you willing to change your name to Mike today on air?
Do it.
To MicRentals?
No, I'm not. You don't even have to do.
Just your first name is Mike. It could be Mike Arruda.
Actually, no. I'm upping it. Yeah, it's Mike Reynolds. First name, last name. All your kids change their names. Are you prepared to make that move today?
Yeah, probably not. I get called that on the phone, like, "Hey, Mike," and I'm like, "Hey, yeah, it's Stephen." That actually, I think Brandon Yip from Bayside was the first person to say that. He was like, "Hey, Mike," and I was like, I just went with it, and then kindly after I was like, "By the way, my name's Stephen."
Think about how much time you could save. Okay, but on a real note, that's so amazing that you.
I don't mind it at all. I need to get a shirt that just say, "My name is MicRentals," whatever. It's all good. I feel like that's the identity of our customer service. That's MicRentals.
So you could get a shirt that says "I'm Mike Reynolds" and in small little parentheses, but my name is Stephen. Okay, yeah. So we love that you're gearing that towards helping the church. That's also who we work with. Tell us about like when you're working with them and they're trying to get their mics. Like, what's a time that you helped churches out in a hurry or a panic? Is there any funny stories there where it's like, oh my gosh, we need some mics?
Yeah, help in a panic is almost on a weekly basis. Maybe daily.
Oh no. I'm glad you're there for one, but oh no.
Yeah, no, and it's good. We're reactive like that. This is a very reactive type business model. We can be as proactive as we want as far as making sure gear's clean, prepped, ready, inventoried, all that stuff. But I mean, January has been flipped upside down in the best way possible. Like I've never seen a January like this, and that sets the tone for the whole year. Every year we've seen it, because we were tripling, doubling, and then COVID, fun times. But again, we're here because of the church. We would have been gone if it weren't for them. So that's why we love them, and we will never forget them. That we put them first. But January is just like, holy crap! It feels like December still. We had that lull. just before Christmas and then right after New Year's. And then I got an extremely interesting phone call that I had to supply 82 mics for that ended up in Dubai over last weekend. So it was that's some crazy stories like that. That wasn't necessarily a church customer, but I told them, hey, the church actually made this happen because like our selection wouldn't be what it was. My team wouldn't be the size it was. So our core value number one is honor our roots daily. And so we always remember where we came from and who we are built by, really. So the crazy, it's funny. I think I have to drop Passion's name here because I love them so much. And they're always like, man, I'm so sorry. This is like last minute. If you can't do it, I totally understand. I was like, guys, I know it's not your fault. So if I have a message to everybody out there who calls us at last minute, it's okay. It's not your fault. We know stuff comes from up top, and then creative directors can't make up their minds. I hope they're listening too. Make up your mind at least a week in advance and give these guys a break.
Stress rolls downhill.
It's
man.
So what we're saying is it's the pastor's fault. Let's just put it on record.
Yeah, ultimately, I hope it's funny. I think we're almost getting down to the productive planning section you have here, but some of the last minute stuff is like, hey, these capsules we rented they're not what we're looking for. We need to switch these out, so I need them sent to this arena. Things like that. But yeah, the Passion team has been great to work with because we completely understand. I've been there and I've just kind of just been a fly on the wall, and I see like, man, this is tough. This is tough to react to. And so they're just responding to what's thrown at them, so all we can do is not make them feel bad, is just show support. So, I mean, that's when we do the late night runs to FedEx. Our FedEx stays open till like 9:30 at night. So at the airport, I mean, so that's fantastic. But, I mean, we've Delta cargoed stuff too. So they have it in the same day. So we use all the cargo services on all the major airlines to get things to people within 24 hours. Especially when FedEx starts to screw up.
And it feels like you're almost what you're saying is your best piece of advice for the tech leaders, for the church tech leaders, is open communication with those above you. Say like, hey, we're here to serve you. We're here to try and enact your vision. But if we're going to need, for example, 82 microphones for this production you want to put together, we're going to need some runway to actually make that happen. So just that open communication.
That's exactly right. There was a time at Church on the Move where it was a little rough, and it was just like, hey, you guys want to do this? I need a $10,000 budget to pull this off. Like I remember when they wanted to do the same thing that we did on Christmas Train on outdoor train cars, because we had some outdoor cars. Well, I was like, I got to put in some waterproof speakers, and I got to change the whole infrastructure of those outdoor train cars, and it was just like, we want to make it happen. We want to make it happen. I was like, well, okay, can you please approve the budget that I submitted so I can get this done? And they waited till like 48 hours before it had to go live. And so I'm, overnighting everything. It's that much more expensive, and so it's like, that's not what I wanted to do. We're trying to be our tech directors, and we're trying to be good stewards, and we get handcuffed when we get put in those tight situations where it's like, okay, well now, I'm going to have to like white glove it here to get it, to get it there on time. And, churches don't have the budget of some of these world tours, like these global tours have. They can pay for the $2,500 overnight fee, or in-person courier handover and all that stuff. But I think if stewardship came first, it would probably change. At least give the more, make the timeline a little broader. There's a church in town that does a really good job as Victory with their plays. They put on this huge production, and somebody could see that and be like, and it's a week before Christmas, like, all right, we're doing that. And it's like, what? That was written, coordinated. There's 200 actors. All the film that they use for B-roll, they start that in August. So you got to put some things in perspective. And they do that Easter, they start, it's funny, for Easter stuff, they start actor calls now for Easter right now. So it's already written, or for the most part written. And it's not the same every year either. If you're ever in Tulsa around those times or whatever, can see that online. It's pretty killer. It's never the same show. You're like, I've seen this. This is the part, the same themes. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and of course Jesus getting crucified and rising on the third day. But the way they do it is so creative. So much love to them. That's something I feel like they do right. But we've been guilty at, like, because when I say we, I've been at Church on the Move for 22 years, and that's my home. So we haven't been perfect, and it's up to, like you said, like the tech leaders to be honest and truthful about the situation. At least give them the information. And it's hard for us. We can't be responsible to how the leader reacts to that information or your direct report, but you at least got to do your job and tell them to be truthful. Don't be a yes man. I was surrounded by yes man when I first got to where I was, and I was the only one being like, hey, that's not going to be able to happen. And just to put a little bit more perspective around it, and there was a changing of the guard, and I survived that changing of the guard because I also partnered myself with Andrew. He taught me how to budget and all these other things, and I was in alignment where the church was going on a bigger picture.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyway,
we've heard that a lot on, essentially, you can say yes, but yes with a cost. Yes, I can do that with this budget. Yes, I can do that with this amount of money. Yes, I can do that with this amount of planning. Like, you have to give, when they give you this, the part of, here's the vision, you have to come back with this is the cost, this is the planning. And a lot of times that really illuminates things for pastors. That's a reoccurring motif we heard in 2022, was to come with this is what that actually is going to cost you. Because compulsion has a huge cost. Let's do, like, as
especially
you say,
now
Christmas.
With supply chains. Dude, you can't. I can't help things in China. Factories are burning down in China, or whatever stuff's stuck off the coast of Catalina. I can't do anything about that.
But speaking of the things you can do, you do work with some of the coolest clients. Like, it just seems like you're always working with, like, a really cool church, really cool organization. Who's some of the coolest people you've worked with that you'd love to share a moment that you had with them?
Oh, for sure. Gosh, there's a couple, and it's funny. This one got me. It got me kind of emotional, just because it was like, I'm like, how the heck did we get here? These people were on, like, these kind of like on our dream list, and for us to finally be working with them, that's nothing we didn't cold call them and all that stuff, but I want to point out, like, the guys from Elevation, from the touring side, that would be Corey Edwards.
What's Elevation?
They're a SKA band.
Ska, bro.
Yeah. Well, and I was always I've always been like an avid listener of their stuff, and then I find out, like, wait a minute, I think they just rented audience mics from us for Hallelujah Here Below. And sure enough, it was Garrett who was there at the time, and then Jack Nellis, who was on the recording side. So from the touring side, it's Corey, because our job is to make sure to give him all the elements that he wants to keep his sound intact, and that's from the audience capture mics, but then all the DPA capsules we supply, his specific drum mics that he wants. And then from the guys now that are at the church, which would be John Mix on the recording side, and Justin Wisnant, who's the audio director, helping them out with better crowd mic selection, and things like that. So it's super honored that we get to work with them. But everybody will tell you, we treat everybody just like we treat them. There's not like a huge difference. We've stayed late for the church that we've never heard of before, after hours to get something out the door for them. Somebody's like, "Hey, I need a Christmas miracle." That's a great text. And I was like, "No problem. If we put it on a Southwest flight right now to San Jose, it'll actually be there waiting for you tomorrow. You just got to pick it up by 2 p.m." And that's a shout out to Danielle Iceland at the Vive Church in the Bay Area. But of course, passion. Standing in the bends, and like all these mics that are out in the crowd are from us, and then all the capsules are from us. All the headset mics are from us. Again, it's like, how did I get here? How did we get here? Because I usually bring one of my guys with me, and it's kind of like one of those but God moments. Like it didn't happen overnight. It was just slow and steady, doing the right thing, one customer at a time. If you guys didn't know, this is kind of one of those other cool moments, not necessarily church related, but past 5 Super Bowls, we've supplied the podium mics at the end when they do the post game interviews.
What?
Yeah.
It sounds like
and this year
your business. But we started this off talking about the cool mics that have been used by cool people. All the MicRentals mics have been used by cool people. It sounds like everybody is getting them. I mean, you just never know who's been on that mic right before you.
So all the MVPs, so like from Tom Brady to Patrick Mahomes to Julian Edelman, they spoke to Rob. And it's funny, they use them on opening night, opening media night. I remember the first time I got that was from again, our relationships with the customer is one thing, but that also is duplicated in our relationship with the manufacturers too. We're not like two-faced. We're a jerk to the manufacturer so we can be good to our customer. No, it's both. And what's awesome is because of our model, we get the manufacturers point back to us quite often. And that was Earthworks pointing back to us so they could rent the FM 500s. That's what all those podium mics are. And now this year, I think we're supplying all the headset mics on the refs too. So, and it's just like little pieces. Someday I'll get to actually go to one.
You're making the Super. You heard it here first, folks. Stephen Arruda is making the Super Bowl happen.
That's right. Okay, Stephen, you're talking a really big game about your
about the big game
about your microphone knowledge. So we're going to put you to the test.
Oh my goodness!
Surprise microphone trivia. You versus Blake.
Stephen, I don't want you to get embarrassed, but here you go. Get ready to. No, this is going to
get ready to lose to Blake,
this
right?
This is going to be bad.
Oh, man,
am I supposed to press this?
Well, I'm going to buzz you with the X every time you get one wrong, Blake.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, so.
Okay, do I press
question
that?
Number one. Question number 1. Who was awarded the first patent of a microphone?
Thomas Edison.
I didn't get a ding buzzer because I didn't assume you would get one right.
I was going to say, I wasn't sure if that was like a one at a time if he gets it wrong, but I agree with him.
Well, he said it first, Stephen.
Look, Stephen, just give it to me because I will not get anything else right. The sympathy point is on the board.
So whoever shouts it out first, essentially.
Okay.
So question 2. Name the 3 main types of microphones.
Condenser, dynamic, and ribbon is
correct.
Other words that mean things.
Good job, Blake. Okay. Which of those 3 types most commonly requires electricity to power it?
Condenser.
Holy mackerel, you got another one right, Blake.
I didn't get that right. That's process elimination and eagerness.
Okay, it is currently Blake 2, Stephen 1. Okay, next, true or false? A speaker can be used as a microphone.
True.
Stephen got that one. 2-2.
I should have just gone fast again.
Reverse polarity transducer. That's all it is.
It's basically a speaker is a microphone wired backwards.
True or false? Stephen Arruda can make a kick drum mic amazing. He's the only one on earth that can do it.
False. Okay. Yeah. Next question. Best selling microphone of all time.
SM58.
Sure. I should have said the Shure SM58.
Now, I don't have actual evidence to back this up, but I went with Shure SM57.
57, yeah.
So you both technically got it wrong as far as I'm concerned. So still 2-2.
You got screwed, Stephen.
Okay.
It's all good.
Next, the most expensive microphone ever sold on Reverb was a 1960s Elam 250E. What did it sell for? Whoever gets closest.
$64,000.
Jeez, I want to say like Like $125, like 125 grand.
You are both wildly overshot. It was $35,000.
I was the closest at 64.
So Blake won that one.
My bad.
Man,
I guess it was like, I don't know. Yeah, I never didn't know that.
This is embarrassing right now, Stephen. 3-2. You've got 2 questions left to seal this deal.
He's got MicRentals.com. I've got what? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. I don't have to prove myself.
Okay. Next to last question. The most expensive microphone I've ever sold was a Sony C800G. How much did it go for?
$9,000.
Oh, you probably got at least 10. Yeah, 11. I'll say 11. I'll go up higher.
Well, dang it was 10. So you both were equally.
We'll just call it a wash.
Well, last question. Then we'll end in a tie. What is the model of the microphone that Blake and I are using right now?
SM7B. SM7B.
I was going to say SM58.
It's literally in front of your face. It's right there, Blake.
You know what?
So I'm going to, tie goes to the guest, Blake, and you get to spin the wheel of doom.
I would just like to say.
I need to send you guys some Earthworks ethos so you can compare them to those SM7Bs. Turn your preamps down.
I won't say no.
Okay, Blake, spin the wheel.
Can I get some consideration for time, though? That's kind of impressive.
No, tie goes. Oh, you're fired. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know if I've gotten fired yet this year.
I know.
So
Every other one is you're fired. So,
well, then how creative is that?
There is one that says you get 10% of ChurchGear.
Oh,
let's see if you ever land on that.
All right. Stephen, you're a winner in my book because you've got the tech takeaway for me. What would you give for this episode's tech takeaway for the tech directors that are out there? You've already given a lot of good ones on being willing to say the bad news or the cost of these visions or compulsions to do something at random.
Yeah, most of it does come down to culture. When I saw the Church on the Move culture shift, I fell in love with it even more because they learned from their mistakes. I was the first employee because of course I didn't get fired or nothing. I stepped away so I could do this. But they actually invited me back to speak at an all staff. They've never done that. There was always this cloud of mystery behind like, oh, what did he do wrong? I was like, nothing. I'm going to do on to bigger, better things, and it was always like, there was this assumption that like they did something wrong, because that happens too in churches too. It's people where there's people, there's problems. But when the culture shifted, and something in 2014 that Kirby Anderson, who was our camp director at the time, made all the staff read a book called Love Works. And that I kept saying to myself, well, number one, that was a great summer because we all went and read that book. But that's how I read it again with my partners. I was like, this is what I want our company culture to be. And I have it here. I got up to get it earlier, but this is called Love Works by Joel Manby. And Joel Manby was the former CEO of Hershon Family Entertainment. So that's Dollywood, Silver Dollar City. They manage all these great properties and everything. But you're trying to figure. So I was the technical director for our South Campus. Andrew hired me back in because I was struggling the first 3 years. I definitely didn't pay myself, but I also didn't have like a job. So he was like, "Hey, I got our South Campus," and I was like, "Man, that's like 3 a.m. load-ins. I'm home at 3 p.m. My weekend's gone basically." But what was awesome is I really using this. I had this in me to get to know the volunteers who I didn't know. The former tech director, who's now John Vasquez, who's our production director at Church on the Move. He had relationships with these people. I was coming in like cold bore, but I used what I knew in this book to like just get to know people. Take a minute just to find out like what's going on in people's lives. Do you even know if they're married, or if they have kids, or if somebody's sick in their family? And it does take effort. It really does take effort. But you'll notice like if people practice this stuff, the culture will eventually shift. And you believe it or not, where if even you're down on the ladder, you can actually at least change and control the culture of, your production department. Andrew did. Dear God, Andrew certainly did. And it ended up kind of changing other departments around him. Like, man, how are they so efficient? To the point where Andrew was like pretty much consulting our finance department.
Nice.
Like, he knew how to run a budget from doing tours and stuff.
Did he exchange that consulting for more tech budget money? It was like, hey, I'll come and consult. But
well, what's funny? Hey, that's ain't gonna lie. That probably helped because it was the relationship that mattered. You put the relationships first, and for some reason, everything moves better. You give a crap about people. You got to give a crap about people. I left with 9 summer staff. My first year, I had 2. And so I was able to grow my team, right? How am I able to do that? We were able to do more as a team. Like whenever the camp director was like, yeah, I would love to do a tractor ride through the woods that also had narration on it, like recorded narration. I was like, oh, kind of like GPS triggered. So I used what I learned from the train to create a GPS train, and I wrote it too. And I got one of the guys in the kids ministry to do puppets, who does puppets, to do the voice that I wanted. And the kids had an experience on a tractor ride with waterproof speakers and GPS triggered narration. I spent so much time doing it, but it was like, it's funny. I did it because our culture shifted and changed, and I could focus on that project and have the eight other people handling everything else, so I could put my creativity into this. But they didn't feel unappreciated ever. It was something in this is like being truthful with one another. A lot of people aren't. We're not, like I mentioned before, like just those truthful responses. There's this little proverb that says like honesty is like a kiss on the lips, and it really is, because it's like nowadays it's like, oh my gosh, wow, thank you for being so honest. Well, if you practice it, you'll be really surprised. Like you give truth and you gain trust, and so it's a great exchange. So I really encourage a lot of tech directors to grab this book and read it with your team and talk about it one chapter at a time. There's going to be some honest conversations. Very honest, whether it's about something that happened there or something that's happening on the outside. But that's the thing you need to know, and you'll grow a love and respect for one another. Because one point in this, like this isn't an excuse for like poor performance, because that obviously has to be dealt with truth. Hey, you're messing up in this area. But then how to handle those situations and when to give people second chances and mercy. But it's created a wonderful culture here, because like we'll go all out for our customers. We have a great relationship with our vendors, but I will smash my hand with a hammer for anybody in these offices, because that's how much we care about, how much I care about them, and how much we care about one another. So,
Toby,
anyway.
Toby, would you smash your hand with a hammer for me?
No, but most of the rest of the people here at ChurchGear.
Like a play hammer? Like, would you?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I'll take that. Well, it sounds like we have a new submission for ChurchGear Book Club, which we haven't hosted since we moved locations. Maybe that'll come back.
Hey,
Stephen,
man, I'll jump on that. I'll jump in that with you, because I every February I read this. It's a great month to read it.
That's a bit okay. So everybody has a book or two that they reread, and that's how I think you know how good a book is and how much it means to them.
Mine's the Bible.
Okay, Toby. No, Toby's is Good to Great by Jim Collins. Jim Collins is a razor hair edge underneath Jesus and Toby's power rankings of people. Am I wrong?
Thicker than a razor.
Yeah. Hey, Collins. Good call on Nokia being
and Circuit City
built to last. Yeah. I was like, there's some market insight for you there.
That's
but
right.
It's funny. Companies do last that have great cultures, they really, really do. This is one of our like core readings, along with the customer rules and 17 qualities of a team player. I put my guys through that.
I like that a lot. Core readings. We should have a company book list.
It's going to be long, Blake.
Well, hang on.
Yeah.
You notice what he said. He had a couple, like required and then extra credit.
Well, that's just, I need to speak on this for a second. The 17 qualities of a team player. Everybody wants to be like, 21 laws of leadership, leader, but they suck at being a team player. Totally suck. They love to delegate and all this stuff. Is like, hey, can you come help us and be part of the collaborative for a minute? Communicate to us. Not adaptable. Some amazing qualities in there, and it makes everybody self-aware about what they're good and what they suck at. And it made my team at Dry Gulch gel really good that last year that I was there when I introduced it. It was a challenge for me as a leader because I've never done that, and I never want it to seem like I'm doing it because I've succeeded at all of these. No, when I read this, I'll see stuff again and be like, I suck at that again, or whatever, or I haven't done that in a while. Let's do it. So anyway, I hope I've inspired you guys to start that book club up again. That'd be really great.
No, totally. So Stephen's tech takeaway culture basically is the only thing that matters. That's got to be there. But then give me those books one more time. The 3 books you mentioned. Just the titles.
Love Works by Joel Manby. So yeah, that was Love Works by Joel Manby. Customer Rules by Lee Cockrell. That's a definite business thing, but you can treat, when you do inner department stuff, especially when production teams are working with, like the school or whatever, treat them like a customer. It's funny. It's more, I didn't realize I was getting trained to run a business, I didn't realize that, but that's the path I was on. Yeah. Toby, you didn't realize that either, right?
Oops.
Yeah. Didn't see it. Yeah. Yeah. And then 17 Qualities of a Team Player by John Maxwell. The last one is What Do You Want to Be Known For by Jeff Henderson.
Okay. Well, that's a good list, coming out at the beginning of the year. People they're making that reading list.
They're easy reads, guys. I've never read War and Peace. There's no way. They're easy reads.
Nice. Although business can be war and peace. Well, hey, if someone was going to come find you and disrupt that peace, not leave you alone, but reach out, where would they reach out to you at?
Yeah, if anybody wants to just reach out to me, and again, it can be for whatever. We talk to people all the time, and it never results in a rental because, again, it's fine, whatever. We have experience from all kinds of avenues, but yeah, they can just email me directly, Stephen@MicRentals.com. And if I'm too, that's with a PH, the way God intended it to be spelled. Yeah, I love meeting new people, and again, helping them solve some problems, or if we can be a resource to them. And we're also a resource of resources. So, which means when people got gear to sell, we point them to ChurchGear. When they need to learn about production stuff, we point them to MXU. So we have these, and it's not like we're trying to get referral points from anybody. We haven't asked you for anything. I was like, this makes probably the most sense for what you're going through right now. Do that, So yeah, please reach out to me. Our number is 844-736-3642, or it's also 844-SEND-MIC. Funny enough, we never actually advertised that, but we probably should.
Probably should. That's great.
Yeah.
If we send enough people your way, will you change your name to Mike?
That's hilarious. And again, it never offends me, but I hope they all get introduced to MicRentals, which is the team that's out here prepping rentals right now and busting their butts. February is going to be nuts, so they're preparing for a crazy week next week.
I love that as your company avatar. That's pretty great. Well, man, thanks for joining us. You've given us a lot to read, consider, and laugh at. So, man, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. And it's I love being able to share our story. I don't get too many chances, so thank you for your patience in any of my long-windedness or any of my digressions.
No, not at all. I'm glad we could finally get the guy who sells the mics or rents the mics on a mic himself.
Awesome.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the ChurchGear Studios.
Okay, Blake, I got the secret discount code for MicRentals.com.
Oh, how did you? Okay, good. What is it?
So I don't know who it is on his team, but somebody created an actual avatar named Mike. And so we keep trying to tell him to be Mike, but somebody went behind the scenes and they're now Mike. So they're giving out secret codes.
Oh, that's amazing.
But I signed an NDA, so I can't give it out over the podcast.
Well, dang. So then we got to give some kind of code.
I know. Do we have like a second best?
Well, I guess, you could always use code podcast at churchgear.com to get 11% off anything on this store. And that's even if it's like, I don't know, 60 grand, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You'll get 11% off with code podcast.
I wonder if they tried that on MicRentals.com.
Yeah, maybe you should try code podcast over there.